Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 5 of the Snowblower series. On part 4 we did the tires and the cables, and this part we're going to try and finish up everything that's left. I let the snowblower run for about 10 minutes and it ran out of gas, so I figured this would be a good time to change the oil in this thing. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That end is not coming. This is gonna make a mess, I think. Let me get a pan. Maybe I can keep a mess to a minimum. I have the wheels up off the ground and I have the front elevated with jack stands, and I have a pan underneath, so when this entire pipe comes out of the engine, the oil will kind of just waterfall down here into the pan and we won't make too big of a mess. Alright, that didn't work out too terribly. I'll let that dribble out for a while, and maybe in the meantime we can work on getting this cap off of this pipe. How about that? I cleaned up the pipe and the end a little bit, and I worked the end on and off, so it goes on pretty easily now. I don't think that it will get stuck again, unless I way over tighten it. But I figure let's install this pipe back onto the engine and install the end piece, and then we can fill it up with oil. I think that's probably good enough. I think that'll be good. You know what? I'm going to put a little bit of oil in it and tilt it back up so that this is the lowest point in the sump, and I'll just wait and see if it leaks. I took this opportunity, since it's out of gas and the oil is drained, to flip it up on its bucket and take a look underneath and see what we've got. Everything looks pretty decent. I may go over with the whiz wheel on this and clean it up, the wire brush, and then lubricate it. Definitely going to lubricate it. But what I do notice is that the self-propel, let me see if I can get some light in there. The self-propel pulley is at an angle, and that is because this belt is the wrong belt, I believe. It is too long. This The self-propelled, the transmission is attached to this spring here, which is attached to this bolt up here, and it is supposed to, the transmission, the angle of the transmission can move, and that spring is really what's providing tension on this belt. So if the belt is too long, the spring is going to pull the transmission too far back, and this pulley is going to be in an angle, what it is now. We could easily fix that by getting the correct belt. All cleaned up for the most part. I wire wheeled all these gears and the shafts and everything. Cleaned up the bulk of the rust. So I am going to put a generous coating of lithium grease on these gear teeth and spin that in. Everything is all lubed up. I lubed the gears with lithium grease. I lubed this spring that puts tension on the transmission and the drive belt with lithium grease. And I sprayed all of the bushings on all the rotating shafts with some motorcycle chain lube. This stuff, Silcoline chain lube, should do a pretty good job of protecting it. Since it's exposed to the outside, there's no cover that goes over this. I figure that I should lube everything up pretty good so I don't get, a lot of rust or anything like that. I think I'm going to take this opportunity while it's out of fuel to change the fuel line. The last time I had the carb down, the bowl off, drilling the jet, I saw little itty-bitty chunks of fuel line in the bowl. So that means that the ethanol has gotten to the fuel line and it is starting to degrade it, and it's starting to chunk off, and that's not good. It's going to clog the jets. It's not going to run right. So I'm going to replace the fuel line with this ethanol resistant J30R7. It can take up to 100% ethanol or methanol and high pressures and high temperatures, so it's excellent for this application. And I also have a fuel shutoff valve, which I am going to install so that I can shut off the fuel. The trick is to get this fuel line snaked through the engine. It actually goes behind that cover and up to the tank. And this cover is held on, let me see if I can, this cover here is held on by the head bolts. So I really can't take the tin off without loosening the cylinder head, which I don't really want to do. I have a new head gasket, but I don't want to use it. So I'm going to try and use tape and this cut off lag bolt. I'm going to thread it into the hose, both ends, and try and pull the new one through. I took the carb float bowl off to wipe it out, and I wanted to point out that on this jet, Bruce Pender mentioned it on one of the previous videos, I think part 3, that there is actually, I don't know if you can see it here, but a tiny idle jet hole here in the side of the jet. In addition to the main jet hole in the center, there is one tiny one here on the side for the idle circuit. That's where the idle circuit picks up fuel. And Bruce mentioned that he asked if I had, if this carb had one and if I had cleaned it out. And yes, I did. After seeing one of his videos, I actually went back and checked to make sure that this was clear, and it was. Got the carburetor off, and I got the clamp off, and the fuel line is right here. And this is the new fuel line. It's I want to say just a hair bigger in diameter than the old one. Hopefully I will not have too much trouble getting it through. I don't know, but we will see. Yeah, that is just a tiny bit bigger in diameter. Hopefully this will work. Alright, I wrapped some electrical tape around it. Don't want to wrap too much. I don't want to make it any thicker than it needs to be. So I am going to go unhook the old fuel line from the tank and give it a yank, and let's see what happens. There we are unhooked from the tank over here, and I will put you back in the stand as I try and work this thing through. Okay, here we go. I've finally got it through. It took a lot of pulling and tugging, and I ended up taking the tape off because it was getting caught, and a lot of cursing, and I eventually got it through. The carburetor is back on, and all that's left is to connect up this fuel hose. If I can get it back on. Oh, sorry. Standing too close. There we go. And the primer line. Done. It's all connected up. The new hose was strung through. I cut it to length. I installed the fuel shutoff valve on it, and then attached a small piece of fuel hose up to the tank. So I ordered a new drive belt, and it actually came very quickly to my surprise. So this is it. So I'm gonna replace the self-propel belt under there. So let's go ahead and take this cover back off and get in there. Cover is off, and I think I can actually just reach in here and pull this thing off by hand. Yeah, actually I'm gonna have to take this one off first. Now I should be able to just pull that off like that. I have it flipped up on the bucket again. The drive belt is on the crank pulley and on the transmission. The spring came off when I removed the old belt, since there was nothing holding the transmission from flopping up in that direction. The spring came off of the bolt here. So that is the last thing to do, is to put the spring back on, and that'll be it for the belt. So let's do that. Let's see if we can do that. Let's see if I can manhandle this spring back into position. If that doesn't work, we'll come up with something else. That might not work. this way. I got it. That was not too bad. I think that worked out pretty well. If you notice now with the correct belt, that those two pulleys are lined up. They are not at an angle with each other. They are perfectly parallel with each other the way they are supposed to be. So that was definitely the problem with that. It was the wrong belt on there. Looking at it from this angle looks much better too. That's the way it's supposed to be. Well, the belts are back on. All I have to do now is put the cover on and we'll be done with that. The next order of business I think is going to be to put the heat box back on this. It did not come with one, and even before I went to see it, I knew that it did not have one. So I picked one up on eBay at the time because I did not have a spare one. So this is it. It's not quite the same color. It is a Craftsman, from a Craftsman, but it is, to a Tecumseh engine like this. So I think that this is gonna fit. I hope it fits. Gotta get that choke lever through. There we go. There. Right like that. So 2 screws go in here and secure it to the carburetor, and there is supposed to be a tab on this muffler with a little screw here, but there is not. That is missing. And also I noticed that this muffler is supposed to have a tab here in the back. You can see where it was, that screws right there, a little L bracket. That is also missing. I don't think I'm gonna bother with that. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, and I'm not sure that that little screw on top is absolutely necessary. I don't have another one of these mufflers, and I don't really want to buy one, so I think we're gonna leave it at that. So let me go find some screws that are gonna fit this, and we'll attach this. So the thread pitch is 8/32, number 8 and 32 threads per inch. And I found these, I found these neat black stainless steel screws in my screw stash, and those fit right in. They're not too long. I'm not going to have to cut them. I think they will work just fine. So let me see about getting this thing back on there. And it actually has a kill wire, so when you take this key out, it kills the engine. It grounds out the coil. I think I'll connect it. Why not? There's a place for it right there. Alright, got that on. Now let's get that on. Line up those screw holes and get these things started. That's pretty solid. Put this choke lever back on. There we go. That works as it should. Alright, good. I have the snowblower back up, tilted up over the oil pan. I am going to put a little bit of oil in it and see if it leaks. If it doesn't, then it is good to go. All I need is some snow. Oh, I did want to show that this dipstick is all clean, and the old dirty oil was sitting in it so long that it stained the dipstick. Can you see that? Right there is actually at the exact right level, but it was dirty and it sat in there so long it stained the dipstick. I put a little bit of oil in it, and it's been sitting for about 5 minutes, and I see no signs of wetness anywhere, either up there where the pipe screws into the engine block or down here on the cap. So I think we're going to call it good, and that'll be a wrap on this snowblower. We are pretty much done. All I need is some snow. Right now it's raining pretty good outside, and it's not going to change over to snow or anything like that. I think that I'm going to have to wait until January to test that. That's usually when we get our first decent snow, if it happens at all. So I want to thank you for joining me on this one. This snowblower was quite a heap, but I think we brought it back to life. I think it's in pretty good condition now, and I'm looking forward to using it. So if you like these videos, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you on the next one.